to talk about something else today. The confusion of the Christ just sort of popped in the head. And, whether or not the character Jesus of Nazareth was an actual historical character can be debated by well-meaning people until the end of time. But what sticks in the common consciousness is the Christ idea embodied in the story of the Jewish teacher. In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes writes, God moves upon God. This is the starting point of creation. Every time one conceives an idea, it is God expressing itself. So let's do like the ancients did and share a little knowledge through a story. Take a step back in time with me to a thriving civilization on the Mediterranean Sea. Trade goods are moving through crossroad towns and ports from the Far East to outer Brittany. Roman roads and Roman law have linked distant lands and tamped down local warlords. The merchant class rivals agriculture for control of the hearts and minds of mankind. And with this shift from simple survival existence to this now possible wealth building model, people are starting to expand their thinking, stretching common consciousness for the first time beyond a focus of pure physical existence to the realm of the true meaning of life. The people's spiritual beliefs run the gamut from polytheistic to monotheistic to atheistic, with all of them becoming consumeristic. Where a small sliver of humankind is so bent on amassing wealth and power, it contrives a self-serving reality out of whole cloth, then uses its wealth to enforce its version of truth upon an otherwise disaffected populace. All this while the universe just keeps on expanding. Loving without judgment, giving to all as each believes. And along with more wealth and power being distributed among the few, the truth of spirit begins to invade the thoughts and dreams of people who now find their labor enriching others and not themselves. Spirit has given to rich and poor alike the gift of free choice, a gift so powerful no law or labor can drive it completely from the minds of people who see the wealth of others and want it for their very own. They want their piece of the pie. As no invention is fully the work of one person, but an amalgamation of improvements over existing technologies, the evolution of ideas has not one parent, but is rather a gradual bending of our common consciousness. A teacher emerges, a movement takes root, and an idea's time has come. Holmes writes again in the Science of Mind textbook, mind, speaking of the one mind here, must also contain the avenue through which the idea is to be expressed. Every thought sets the fulfillment of its desire in motion in mind, and mind seeks the thing, sees the thing as already done. Remember, in Science of Mind, we know that all ideas pre-exist. They're already out there. They're floating around in the ether of the universe. We simply need a conduit to bring it to our realization. Jesus is a divine idea. God moves upon God, and the divine idea burst upon the land. A divine idea springs forth as if from an immaculate conception. It exists in the universe, needing only a conduit through which to be expressed into the common consciousness. Now, the teachers of the time are as simple as the students seeking enlightenment. There's no concept of abstract reasoning, no foundation of science and philosophy to build upon. 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, these people were relatively simple people of the land. What tools lie at hand are the tools and stories the people already knew. They know hammers, axes, swords, spears, fishing nets, and presses for olive oil and wine. They also know hunger, joy, sadness, love, anger, and despair. They have grown up with stories of gods and kings. These things they know. So a conduit for this divine idea is concocted from the ether that is spirit. It has no human father, but is born unto the Mother Earth, an idea that defines the essence of spirit in a story humans can identify with and more easily understand. It grows slowly at first, indistinguishable within the common consciousness. It learns the ways of its community. It sees, it questions, it weighs its observations against the purity of spiritual truth. The divine idea gathers allies as like-minded people are drawn together on this new evolutionary path. The divine idea is recognized in the community as a force bringing change. Imagine we have this character, this man born from an immaculate conception, gathering his disciples around him as they are drawn to the idea that there is a better way to think of ourselves, a better way to honor ourselves as united beings with spirit. And they move through their community and people see them coming and go, that's them there. Some embrace it. Others retreat into fear of the unknown, clinging to the illusion of prosperity that is masked as stability in their community. A divine idea is not opposed to kicking over a few tables when the occasion calls for it. The conduit Jesus saw the money changers taking over the temples, intended to unite the people with their own spiritual power, and drove them out so that the people might once again recognize their own power to exercise freedom of choice and direct their own fates through a direct union with spirit. The divine idea cleared the consumeristic God from the temple to open an unobstructed path to spiritual truth. But a new idea must be reinforced into the minds of the people. Its power must be shown to be divine and that it rises above mere human fallacy. A divine idea is not restricted by the laws of physics. It is without limits, existing out of time and space as we understand it. A divine idea easily calms an angry sea and walks upon the water without any fear of failure. A divine idea has unlimited potential, so its source never dries up. Spirit is infinite, and the divine idea gives and gives. The divine idea cannot conceive of hunger, so always finds within the basket one more loaf or one more fish to share. A divine idea is not defined by appearances. What appears to be water may in fact be wine when we believe it to be. We all know the phrase, turn a lemon into lemonade. A common phrase that says, don't believe that what you're stuck with is all there is. Work it out. Find a better solution. The divine idea of spirit creates from itself any form we believe into being. There's another saying I learned from my science of mind teachers. Pain is real. Suffering is optional. Eckhart Tolle writes, surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. The only place where you can experience the flow of life is the now. So to surrender is to accept the present moment unconditionally and without reservation. It is to relinquish inner resistance to what is. In the science of mind, we do not deny our experiences as they are dealt us, but we do determine our reaction and consequently our memory of the event. Ernest Holmes writing in the textbook again, things exist in the universal mind as ideas. Ideas take form and become things in the concrete or visible world. Now, the plot of more than one book or movie has found our heroes cast adrift in a lifeboat, still alive after many have died. After weeks of starvation, one delusional sailor invariably starts describing the meal they plan to enjoy when they're resting. Another sailor becomes angry. Shut up, you idiot, he shouts, but another speaks up. No, I can see it too. Then he adds some favorite treat from his childhood and another, and the whole boat builds upon the feast, one memory after another, until someone notices a masthead or smoke on the horizon signaling the end of their ordeal. They have believed themselves back into the feast they have so longed for. A divine idea transcends human challenges, opening a path to spiritual salvation. A divine idea, however, can threaten the status quo. A divine idea can be so powerfully frightening, those who oppose it will subject it to the most horrible forms of suppression imaginable. Not only is the conduit Jesus subjected to humiliation and crucifixion, but in his name, leaders through history seeking power and control through a false interpretation of the divine idea practice all manner of horrors upon innocents who are ironically more aligned with the Christ idea than the people torturing. Spirit is unerringly consistent. The science, in the science of mind, is demonstrative of the fact of spirit's consistency. When the principles are applied, the results are always repeatable. The principles are always proven to work. That's what science is. You have to be able to repeat it. Other people have to be able to repeat it. Science of mind, science of proving. This is how we can use the power of spirit for our own benefit. The best efforts by people to bury a divine idea will always be defeated. You can hang it from a cross, stab it with a spear, and bury it under a rock. But in the end, it will not be suppressed. When you think you are rid of the divine idea once and for all, it will show up on the road beside you, more indestructible than ever. The place you had thought you'd buried it will be empty. The conduit, Jesus, is so closely entwined with the Christ idea. It represents the story has been twisted either erroneously or with intent to empower the person named Jesus rather than honor the divine idea represented by Jesus. Suppressing the Christ idea of spiritual empowerment by elevating the person of Jesus creates an opening for human intervention between spirit and the masses. It pushes forth the idea that a single drop of water must have an intermediary to define its relation to the ocean. It portrays the drop of water as being something less than equal to the other drops of water. It reserves power to the few at the expense of the many. The Christ idea, by its very definition, cannot be exclusive or exclusionary. Believing in the Christ idea demands barriers be removed, demands recognition that in the common consciousness we are all crossing the finish line together or not at all. Jesus the Christ demands no loyalty from any of us to any person, living or dead. Jesus the Christ demands only that we remain loyal to the Christ idea wherein lies our eternal salvation. Our complete, total, unconscious, constant union with Spirit is our salvation. The story of the conduit Jesus has been translated over time through several languages, each of whom distorted words and twisted meanings, either innocently by human error or intentionally by human design. But is it any wonder, after examining the story as an idea rather than as a person, that the teacher's name in English comes down to Jesus? Or is it really just us? Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Is it just us? That's the question. Yes, Reverend Glen, that's how we open the floor right now. And while we're waiting for any commentary, I see now where inspirational elements is just a total compliment to your message. In that, yes, there are many teachers, educators, gurus out there, but it still comes down to the fact that you are the one. You are the one just being fed through these teachers, these gurus, and it's for you to recognize your position in that. And, you know, there are many times that we are, I want to say, struck with some kind of ailment or, you know, some situation, some circumstances in our life. And yes, we are brought to these teachers, these gurus. However, what it is really saying is that you are the one that you're really looking for. And yes, Reverend Glen, so that is just beautiful that you just expound on it like that. You know?
You know, being brought up in the Methodist Church myself, first of all, as a kid, I hated going to church. I won't get away from that, but I did always enjoy the story of the character of Jesus. And yet, there was that side of me that said, boy, there just isn't any hard record of the existence. So when the concept of that character actually representing an idea rather than being a historical chronology of all the life, is like, I'll always accept the possibility. Yes, could have happened. I'm not going to deny that. However, we know the Romans kept really good records, and they're kind of silent on the subject for whatever reason. But the idea that it represents, the things that the stories talk about him doing, all representing, when you think of that as an idea, it's indestructible. It has no fear. It's not limited in any way. Then it starts to make sense, and it makes sense that people who, human beings, you could take a human being from 3,000 years ago and plant them in today, and they would be able to adjust and survive. They would have to acquire, some certain basic knowledge of things that we kind of take for granted, but their brains are capable of it and they can handle it. But at the time, they didn't know what we know today.
Right.
And to communicate, and there were people who were brilliant at it, who could communicate to the people because they understood that, I can sit here and read you a list of things, but you're not going to remember it because it's not in your daily interest to do that. You're not an academic student. But if I tell you a story about a farmer or a fisherman or even a soldier, that's something you can identify with because it exists around you. So we told stories, and we still tell stories. I mean, flip on your TV 24/7, there's a CSI story on or something else on that has a moral to it underneath the drama. And, even if you watch The Bachelorette, there's a moral to it. It's real simple. Don't be such an idiot. But, we still tell stories. It's a huge industry. And it's a great way to teach people things.
And that is why the man Jesus was such a fantastic master, because he mastered storytelling. He has a parable for almost anything that he wants to express or expound or have his followers look at or see it more simply. And these ideas are floating around, as you says, and it's the few, not the multitude, who pick up on these ideas and have them channeled. So all of us here in this gathering right now, just like Holmes and Emerson and Jesus and the Buddha and Lincoln, we can have Morse, McDaniels, Stocking, Adepoju, just like Moses or Paul, the Levette. All of us, any of us, if we decide that that's what we want, all those energies can be channeled. And that's why Jesus said, listen, you think you are seeing great things now? You can do greater than this. It's just a matter of just setting up yourself.
It's one of my favorite sayings is this and greater things thou shalt do. Absolutely. Just laying it out there. It's like, people, I am not the important one here. I'm just simply teaching you. I'm trying to get you to understand that this power is your power.
Yes.
Don't worship me. Understand what you can do and get out there and get her done.
Get out there and get her done. So I was discussing with Ade what he can do in his region, in his country, and it's just a matter of just knowing that the power is right here. It's here. Just pull on it, channel it, and get that community together, Ade. Get it together. And as you says, Reverend Glen, when the principles are applied, they always work scientifically. It's like the principle of math. When you add 1 to 1, you must get 2. So it's the same thing. The fact is that we're not seeing these principles. Yes, you know, like how we put the 1 and the 1 down on paper. The fact is that it's workable. It's there. Just apply.
Yeah. Greetings to everyone. Happy Sunday. This is a center of operational awareness. You know. So thank you. I just want to add to what our Reverend Stocker said. I'm just looking at some pictures. Some pictures were just coming to me the way you were speaking, and it was coming to me like a revelation, like when Joseph has the opportunity to choose the period of when he was going through a challenge. Potiphar, Joseph, generation behind Joseph. Like if you decided to follow, or if you decided to choose, okay, Potiphar, beautiful, handsome Joseph, tall, good spoken, hardworking. If you choose to break the generation that will be coming behind him, just like we are making a reference to Joseph today. The same way back to us as the generations. They are so, when you say no to some hard time, when you say no to some certain things about life, what about the generations? It is not one generation or 2 generations that have come behind Joseph. The same way we are living our lives. If we give up on those parts, on those areas, on those life, on those hard time, on those things that we believe that we can't get to where we are getting to, I believe there are so many generations that will be wiped off through that negativity, the same way to positivity.
Right.
Once again, sir, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And
thank you for sharing
yes,
your thoughts. You're right.
So right. In that if we here don't take up the reins to be channels and to lead, what's going to happen to the generation coming behind us? What are they going to know? And that is why Jesus and, all those other leaders, Moses and Paul, were so, so vigilant in putting forth what they know. And listen, some people believe that, oh, I got to study some more. I got to know it all. I feel inadequate. You just got to go out there and start. You got to begin. It's like Paul. I just love Paul, St. Paul. What did he do? He just started making notes. He just started writing to the churches and just putting it out there. He was the same one who acknowledged his own inadequacies by saying, listen, there are things that I shouldn't be doing. Those are the things that I'm doing. But he still went ahead, probably fearfully so and nervous, and he put them out. And now what? 3/4 of the New Testament, it's Paul's writings. So you just gotta go for it. Yes, you're gonna make mistakes. Yes, you're gonna buck up. Oh, yes, you're gonna tumble over and fall. But what you do? You get up. As Donnie McClurkin say, yes, we fall down, but what we do? We get up. You get up. So don't be afraid. Ade, start with 1. Start with 1. Yes. Just go.
What you're talking about is so important because we are the conduits of the message. And the one trouble I have had is trusting that message because I like a lot of people that are brought up in a particularly confusing religion about love and fear and God and who he really is, don't have the trust within ourselves to share that message out to others. And I have learned that words are tricky, that who you're being with people is really the message. In other words, if you extend love, people feel that. So if you don't have the words, you can ask, give me the words, Lord, to speak to this person. Then you have help. At least that's the way I understand it. You have some help to reassure the distrust within you to start to speak the truth. And that's so important that we begin to trust ourselves to be able to speak Christ's truth.
Yes.
Yes. So trust is so important, and self-love is so important. Alma teaches this all the time. Trust yourself, love yourself. And that way you can be the real spokesperson, whether you speak or not, for Christ and the idea of Christ. Thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Joan was reminding me that in the tradition that I was raised in, and I'm sure many of you share the same thing, that the teacher would say, well, when you're faced with this situation, ask yourself, what would Jesus do? And that really is what we're talking about today, is like, well, what is the spiritual principle that applies in this situation? What do we need to empower ourselves to remember and to act upon? How do we react to this situation? And, you know, sometimes it's really easy on Sunday morning to be pretty spiritually connected, and it's a little tougher Monday through Friday to hook into the same power and remind ourselves that, wait a minute, I need to keep that principle flowing. I can't choke it off because I'm angry or I'm shocked. I need to keep that tap open and let it flow.
Yep. Oh, yes. And that is why they are sometimes created these midweek study groups on a Wednesday or whenever.
Absolutely.
To just refill, you know, to remind ourselves and be encouraged by each other to listen.
Absolutely.
This is a principle.
Reinforcement is so important.
Yes, it is. It's important. You know, that's a fellowship. We say, listen, don't ignore the fellowship of the brethren. Yeah. So that is.
And you know, that reinforcement, you know, the things that we do as a community are really great because they, you know, we like to encourage the community. But even if you're doing it the way I love to do it, is, you know, to watch TV shows and movies and read books, look for those messages. You know, don't just sit back and watch the advertisements for the latest medication out there. You know, look into the story and go, oh yeah, I can see this thread. I can see this, you know, this thread turning into a string and turning into a cable and turning into, you know, a thought that this is what they're telling me here. You know?
Yes.
And
yeah.
those stories are there. That reinforcement is there all the time.
All the time. Yes, you're right, Reverend Glen, because I have a particular liking to this particular, she's a journalist on TV. And yes, you know, they come with their partialities, you know, and their opinions as well. But what I admire about her, and I try to pattern her thinking and her strategy, is that in her reporting, you can hear and see and just know that a lot of research went into just that snippet. This is a half an hour presentation. You know, it's like she went all the way to Jericho for all this information, and she researched and she come right back, and the way she lines up you know, in sequence,
Sure.
coming back from history and coming forward and say, listen, this is how this applies now. Listen, this was happening way back then, but look, here it is. And yes, you know, we don't want to always be staring at the TV or YouTube or whatever. But as you said, as you rightly said, very smart. Just choose, just pick what is going to be applicable to you to bring you to that next level. That's all you're looking for. Perfect.
Yes. Reverend Glen,
Sure.
I listened to this section of your talk where you were breaking down how you can, you know, pierce the idea or bury the idea, and when you remove the stone. I wasn't writing notes because I can't write during those times. I have to be listening. So I know I have to go back and look at your talk on YouTube, you know,
Mhm.
to then I can actually stop the recording, write my notes, and come back to it, because man, you were going through so many sections right there that needs to be looked at more than just listening to it right now, you know. And about the idea about when you're looking at the stories on the television, from time to time, Reverend Mazzy and myself, we say these people who were writing these stories, they have metaphysical connections, because if you listen and you know to what they're presenting, and to how the society has kind of conditioned us, it's not to listen for these messages that are so huge and so important, but while doing that, you know, they try to gloss over it so that you don't really get into this in-depth thinking
Mhm.
and association of what's going on, you know, on the screen. You know, you jump into the wider idea, you know, that is really the meat of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the storyteller, what I call my Hollywood elite friends, since I grew up in that neighborhood, even though I didn't know many of them personally, you know, the spiritual community out there is huge, and through all of entertainment, because entertainers are extremely spiritual people by nature for the most part. They really are. And to your point, I was watching the show, and I wish I could remember which one it was now, a few days ago, where the dialogue was almost right out of the science of mind textbook. I mean,
Yes,
to
I
the point
agree.
where they weren't even trying to disguise it. It was like it was right there, you know.
Yeah,
It was like,
I
hello,
agree.
ding dong.
Ding,
I
ding,
agree.
ding.
I see that, Reverend Glenn. I see it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, hallelujah, you know. I mean, as I said before, that we're bending the common consciousness one revelation at a time, one recognition at a time. And you know, as people watch these popular stories, you know, some of this stuff's got to rub off eventually. You know, it really does. You know?
Yes, we are. We are all offsprings from the one, just like how we are. Yes, we're not the entire ocean. We're a drop
Yeah.
from the ocean, but we have all the substance of the ocean in that one drop.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Reverend Glenn. Thank you for this powerful
You're welcome.
discussion this morning
Always a
as we
pleasure.
move along today. Thank you, everyone who made their contribution to this discussion, making it rich and powerful as we move along today